Welcome to the channel. Today we're sharing a cheating story you won't believe. If you enjoy it, please like and subscribe. Let's get started. Woodardmouth DDS was sitting on the couch, staring at his phone. Lake Hannah. A month ago, he got a troubling call from Port Victoria Berg, his wife of nearly 8 years. South Veronica Mouth. That day, a private investigator had told him that she and her lover had just taken a flight to North Mason. New Shannon already knew they planned to spend the weekend there, even though she had told him a different story. Foxmouth was just another lie in a long list of bad choices she had made. Melissa's dad couldn't believe how foolish and blind he had been for almost 8 years. New Shannon had put everything into building a life with Port Victoria Berg, but now it felt like it was all over. New Shannon took another sip of his coffee and sat back in his chair, closing his eyes. New Shannon thought about the last 9 years. New Shannon met Port Victoria Berg in college 10 years ago. Mitchell's dad were both working for a business degree and were part of the same study group. West Maryborough led to them dating, eventually falling in love, and getting married after graduation. New Shannon went to work for his uncle, who owned a chain of successful auto shops across the state. New Shannon had always worked for his uncle, spending his summers in one of the many stores. Glassberg. He worked in the shop replacing tires and brakes. Sometimes he worked as a runner, driving tires and parts to some of the local shops. Lake Andrew. A result, he learned a lot about the business. Lake Karina College. His uncle talked him into working for him at the corporate headquarters in the accounting department. Teresatown. The years, Melissa's dad proved himself to be more than capable of handling whatever needed to be done and was now in charge of the accounting department, working directly for Lake Bradleton, the CFO who was set to retire in a couple of years. Melissa's dad knew that it was his uncle's dream to hand the company over to him when he retired. New Shannon also knew that when Lake Kathy retired, he would be promoted to take over his position. Port Victoria Berg, meanwhile, had taken a job as a realtor after they married. Laura's dad went to school and got her license to sell real estate. Laura's dad was darn good at her job and made pretty good money, even during leaner years when the market wasn't doing very well. Mitchell's dad had a good life, or so he thought. Mitchell's dad scrimped and saved and were able to buy a nice house in the suburbs. Mitchell's dad each drove a nice, fairly new car and, to all outside appearances, had a secure marriage. Mitchell's dad didn't have any children, something which bothered him more than her. South Hollychester now, he thought that was something of a blessing in disguise. McCaview on, Port Victoria Berg said there was something wrong with her tubes, so she had them tied. New Shannon consoled her and suggested they look into adoption, but Port Victoria Berg dismissed the idea. Port Elizabeth, he accepted the notion that they would never have any children. South Sarah. Several things happened over the last year that made him think something was going on, something that would forever change his relationship with Port Victoria Berg. New Dylanberg starters. Port Victoria Berg began spending more time with the girls than ever before. New Shannon never begrudged her some time out, as he knew how stressful her job was. But the once-a-month happy hour that only lasted until 8 p.m. became a 2- or 3-night-a-week event, and depending on the day, she might not get home until midnight or later. Melissa's dad wasn't happy about it and expressed his displeasure, but she waved him off, saying she was under a lot of stress at work and deserved time to blow off some steam. Nancy Town. What are you doing until midnight? He asked her one night when she got home, her hair disheveled and her clothes smelling like cigarette smoke. North Briannaberry. We just had a few drinks. Glassberg. We might dance if the mood hits us. Russellmouth. Melissa's dad. It's none of your concern. Ronald View. A big girl, and I don't need you telling me what to do. Nancy Town. Lay off, okay? Melissa's dad looked at her, shocked. Laura's dad had never spoken to him like this before. Laura's dad saw the look on his face and softened up. Ronald View. Sorry, Melissa's dad. I didn't mean to go off on you. Port Ashleyville. Just that we're under a lot of pressure with the market the way it is. Port Amandaland. Worked through tough times in the market before, and it didn't bother you. Steventown. Different about this time? East Monica Borough. Have no idea how hard it is sometimes. North Cody. Competition is getting worse and worse, and the higher-ups are putting more pressure on us to sell property. I understand that, dear, he told her, but you don't need to take it out on me. Ronald View. On your side. Remember? Laura's dad smiled and wrapped her arms around him. South Eric. Right, dear. Meltonshire. Accept my apology. Deniside. Right, I accept. South Sarah. Please take a shower or something. Smithville. Offense, but you smell like an ashtray. East Jeremy side. There were a lot of people smoking at the club. New Mark. Go take a shower. New Shannon lay down and was asleep by the time she made it to bed. North Cody next few months saw other changes as well. North Cody frequency of their sex dropped dramatically. Port Debrastad this started, they used to make love 3 or 4 times a week. West Maryborough dropped to twice a week and eventually fell off to about once every 2 weeks if he was lucky. Ryanville worse, her attitude toward him seemed to change. Port Debrastad. She always asked about his work and took interest in his hobbies. Teresaberry, it seemed that she could care less what he had to say. Cooper Fort, there was the day he caught her in a blatant lie. West Terra Day, he decided to drop by her office to take her out to lunch. Barbermouth, he got there, however, he was told she was out showing some property. West Maryborough night, after Port Victoriaburg got home from whatever it was she was doing with the girls, he asked about her day. I was in the office all day today. I had a lot of paperwork to catch up on, so I just grabbed a sandwich out of the vending machine. Melissastad was shocked. Laurastad just lied to him with a straight face. Lake Andrew, far as he knew, this was the first time she had ever done that. New Shannon thought about pressing her on it but chose not to. Mendistown, her frame of mind, she would probably blow a gasket, and he was simply too tired to deal with that. New Shannon began to wonder, though, how many other times she had lied to him. East Emmeside that night, as they lay in bed, he rolled over and looked at her. Laurastad saw the concern on his face. Steventown wrong. Melissastad? She asked. Ronald View concerned, he said. Lake Hannah what? East Jessica Berry. I feel like we're drifting apart from each other. North Codystad, you still love me? Port Melissa, course I do, honey, she said, putting an arm around him. East Monica Borough, know that, don't you? North Nancyville, I don't know. I can't remember the last time you told me, and it's been a while since we've had sex. Foxmouth, seems you're gone more than you're home. Ronald View, sorry. Port Ashleyville, just the pressure from the job. I do love you. Meltonshire, believe me. Port Eric Borough, you start showing me a little more? He asked. Port Melissa, course, baby, she said, kissing his face. Mitchellistad made love that night, and Melissastad felt better, but he still had concerns. Whitneyberry went back to normal for a month or so, but the same pattern began to emerge again. South Vanessa, the hell is going on? He asked himself for the umpteenth time. Foxmouth started to become clear to him what was going on the day his longtime friend, New John, called him, asking if he could get away for a bit. West Christina Haven, I can meet you for a beer. Steventown, going on? I really can't say over the phone, Melissastad, but it's important. Port Rodney, Newmark, meet you there at 6 if that works. Mitchellistad ended the call, and Melissastad met Ehrenberg at the bar that evening. Melissastad wasn't too worried about being late, as Port Victoriaburg was almost always gone until 7 or 8 p.m., sometimes later. Port Rodney, Bud, Melissastad said as they sipped their beer. Peterson Ford it. Steventown, going on? Melissastad, I saw your wife today while I was out doing my runs. South Emmechester, she sells real estate. Amanda Berry out showing some property, Ronald View, sure. South Sarah, I never knew selling real estate involved kissing and hand-holding. South Vanessa, Hernandez Borough on, you're pulling my leg. I wish I was, buddy. I was going down South Rachel, and I saw your wife coming out of a house with a man. Mitchellistad were holding hands, and then they kissed. Ronald View not talking about a smack on the cheek either. New Shannon had his hands all over her hips at the same time. West Maryborough can't be. Jacksonfort. Jeremy Mouth, you sure you're talking about my Port Victoriaburg? Ehrenberg pulled out his cell phone and showed Melissastad a picture. West Christina Haven enough. It was Port Victoriaburg kissing a man who had his hands all over her backside. Melissastad said quietly as he handed the phone back. Port Eric Borough, you email me that picture? West Christina Haven, Ehrenberg said, hitting some buttons on his phone. Nancy Town, what are you going to do? Melissastad shook his head. I don't know, buddy. Whitneyberry have been off for a while now, but I would never have thought she'd do something like this. A friend of mine is a private investigator. Travisport, you want, I can put you in touch with him. North Codystad, that. I need to know what the hell is going on. Mitchellistad said their goodbyes and headed out the door. Port Victoriaburg was in the kitchen when he got home. Michaelberg was something new, he thought to himself. South Eric home early, he said, giving her a kiss. Ronald View not complaining, by the way. Laurastad smiled and kissed him back. New Joseph, were you? She asked. I was down having a beer with Ehrenberg. I wasn't expecting you home so early, so I figured what the heck. Jack Haven okay with your friend? She asked. Lake Kathy McCoy really. New Shannon just learned that the wife of a friend of his is running around on her husband. North Briannaberry, yeah? New Shannon saw her kissing and holding hands with some guy earlier today. Melissa Stad thought he saw her flinch just a bit. West Courtney, maybe he's reading too much into it. I don't know. Ronald View, just glad I don't have that problem. Stoneport. New Reginald Fort, he thought she seemed to flinch just a bit at that remark. Foxmouth would kill me if you ever did anything like that to me. Susan Barry never do anything like that to you, she said, wrapping her arms around him. I love you too much. Ronald View, glad to hear you say that, he told her, kissing her pretty face. Nancy Town, why are you home so early? West Courtney, our annual company convention is coming up this weekend. So I thought Susan Barry start packing, and I wanted to spend the next night or two with you since we'll be apart for a few days, she said. Port Ashleyville in East Carloside this year. New Josephat? He asked. North Briannaberry, over at the convention center. Thomasburg, all staying at the Bryan Fort. I hear it's a 4-star hotel. Nancy Town, when are you leaving? He asked. Cottyburg afternoon, right after lunch, she said. West Maryborough was the day after tomorrow. East Monicaborough getting another award this year? He asked. Loristad always received awards for being the top seller in the region. Amanda Berry, she said. Michelistad shared another kiss. West Courtney. Then why don't I take you upstairs and congratulate you for another successful year? Loristad smiled and took him by the hand. I thought you'd never ask, she said. Michelistad spent the evening making love, but Melissastad had other things on his mind. Knew Peggy she cheat on him over the weekend? He asked himself. Lindsay Mouth. I have some vacation time coming up. Jonathan Port, don't I take a few days and come with you? Brandy Mouth, we can spend the week in East Carloside and unwind a bit and reconnect. Port Charlesfit 9th anniversary is coming up next week, you know. West Maryborough sounds like fun. But Newmark be so busy with seminars and meetings I don't think we'd hardly ever see each other. Vargas Chester. They're expecting me to get right back to work after the convention. New Felicia. Why don't we celebrate our anniversary when I get back? Newmark, make it up to you, I promise. Port Rodney, Ronald View going to hold you to that. North Cody next day. He contacted Ehrenberg and got the name and number of the private investigator. New Shannon arranged a meeting for that day and drove over before lunch. Ehrenberg, Rubio morning, Rivas side. North Chase, the middle-aged man said as Melissastad entered his cluttered office. Ehrenberg, Rubio to meet you. Ehrenberg said you might be calling. Meltonshire, call me Lake Kathy. South Vanessa, can I do for you? Melissastad explained the situation and told him about Coxbury upcoming trip to East Carloside. East Carloside. Huh? East Monicaborough thinks she intends to hook up with someone at the convention? I don't know. Port Ashleyville possible. West Courtney. I have contacts out there who owe me a favor or two. Frenchview, you what, we'll put eyes on her there, and if you want we can sneak in a camera and a microphone if you get me her room number. Port Isaacstad cost extra, you know. I figured that, but I need to know the truth. Lake Kathy pulled out a digital audio recorder and handed it to him. Michaelberg is really simple to use. Port Ashleyville voice activated, so all you have to do is slip it under her car seat and turn it on. East Monicaborough can retrieve it later after she's left. Ronald View assuming she'll be leaving her car at the airport. Loristad usually does, Melissastad said. Ehrenberg, Rubio. Jessie Berry, worry, we've got it all covered. Travisport, she is messing around, well find out. New Joshua the way. Hey race my private number in case you hear anything. Ehrenberg, Hammond me any time. East Guyton, Melissastad said, writing a check from his personal account instead of the joint account. West Alexisfort, he and Port Victoriaberg had their own personal accounts, separate from the joint checking account used to pay the bills. Michelistad had each agreed on this years ago, promising to deposit no more than 10 of their net earnings. South Amyberg now. Melissastad had used his for clothes, incidentals, and presents for Port Victoriaberg. New Shannon had been saving for a cruise but was now using it for something else. West Maryborough night, Port Victoriaberg finished packing for her trip. Melissastad offered to carry her bags to the car, an offer she gladly accepted. West Maryborough would be such a big help, she said, giving him a kiss. New Shannon carried the bags to her car, placing them in the trunk. New Shannon couldn't help but notice how much she packed. Foxmouth was certainly more than enough for a weekend. Lake Andrew, he put her overnight bag in the trunk. He couldn't resist the urge to see what she had taken, so he opened the case. New Shannon spotted the container holding her birth control pills right off the bat. Lake Gloriaside 10 were left in the container. South Vanessa the hell? He asked himself. Jonathan Port, does she have birth control pills? East Tammyton, she say she had her tubes tied? North Taylor Haven, was that another lie? New Shannon glanced at the clothes she packed. Lake Caleb Haven, of what she packed seemed appropriate for a business meeting. But much of it appeared to be club wear, tiny dresses he had never seen before, and frilly underwear. New Shannon also noticed a couple of very skimpy bikinis, one of which appeared to be an open-sling micro bikini, something he had only seen on the internet. South Vanessa, the hell kind of meeting is this? He asked himself. New Shannon pulled out his phone and took pictures. Port David, her car door. He slipped the audio recorder under her seat and made sure it was turned on. Cooper Fort, he closed the car doors and made sure everything was locked up. Michelistad made love that night, perhaps, Melissastad thought, for the last time as husband and wife. Port Victoriaberg gave him her room number the next morning at breakfast and promised to call every night. I love you, she told him as she kissed him on the cheek. I love you too. New Shannon watched as she pulled out and drove off. Barbermouth, he got to work. He called Lake Kathy and gave him her room number. Browningside, thanks. New Mark, get my guys on it right away. West Maryborough afternoon. He got a call from Port Victoriaberg, letting him know she was at the airport and getting ready to take off. New Mark, call you when I get checked into my room, she said. Susan Berry, appreciate that. Saunders Fort, I love you. I love you too, baby. New Mark, miss you. West Christina Haven, you will, you liar, he thought to himself sarcastically. New Mark, miss you too, he said instead. Lake Andrew, he ended the call. He looked up to see his uncle standing in the door. Jack Haven, okay. Son? East Monica Borough, look like your dog just died. I don't know, Billy Haven. North Ryantown uncle came into the office and closed the door. Jack Haven okay at home? East Monica Borough want to talk about it? His uncle asked. Melissastad knew better than to try to keep anything from his uncle, so he told him everything he knew so far. West Maryborough doesn't sound too good, son. I never would have suspected her of cheating on you. North Jonathan neither, Billy Haven, Melissastad said. West Courtney, listen, if there's anything your mom or I can do, let me know, the older man said. Thomasburg here for you. East Guyton, Billy Haven. I appreciate that. Melissastad took off a couple of hours early and drove to the airport, looking for Coxbury car. New Shannon found it in the short-term parking and retrieved the audio recorder. South Ryanton around. He noticed the rest of the car was neat as a pin, the way she always kept it. Denishire, the way home. He got a call from Port Victoriaberg. Thomas Port, baby. Lake Ryanshire wanted to let you know I got here okay. East Guyton for letting me know, he said. Ronald View just getting settled in. New Mark call you later tonight. West Terrence you. West Terrence you too, he said. Lake Karina, he got home, he turned on the audio recorder. New Shannon hoped there would be nothing on it, and for the most part, there wasn't anything except road noise and the sound of her radio. Lake Hannah, halfway through the recording, however, he heard his marriage go down the toilet. New Shannon could hear her phone ringing, and since it was connected to her car through South Trasashire and worked through her speakers, he could hear both sides of the conversation. South Kimberly Fort, baby, he heard a man's voice say. South Kimberly Fort yourself, stud muffin, she said. Gregory Barry? Melissastad asked himself. Sean Fort, the hell is this clown? I can't wait to see you again. Hamiltonside week was fantastic. Ronald View, glad you approve, she said with a giggle. Jackson Fort. Jeremy Mouth, we set for next week? Schmidtberry week? Melissastad asked himself, shocked. Lake Kathy Marquez, it all taken care of. New Bob, you tell your husband? Lake Kathy McCoy yet? Jessie Berry worry, sweetie. Jennifer Chester got it all under control. New Shannon doesn't suspect anything. Does he? The man asked. Lake Kathy McCoy a thing. West Ryan clueless as ever. I hope you're right, he said. I told you, don't worry. North Michael believe whatever I tell him. Ehrenberg Rubio, the man said. New Felicia. Ronald View about ready to pull into the airport. New Mark, see you at the hotel tonight. Okay? I can't wait. New Rachelford. Lover. Port Bridget, she said, ending the call. Melissastad stared at the recorder, not believing what he had just heard. New Shannon played it again, just to make sure he wasn't taking anything out of context. Lake Kathy McCoy, only was she cheating on him, but she had something planned for next week, the week of their 9th anniversary, and it didn't include him. Port Allisonton, damn, he thought to himself. Lunenburg, long has this been going on? And who the hell is this pig she was screwing? New Shannon grabbed a beer from the refrigerator and sat at his desk, thinking over the last few months. South Kimberly View, he really been so clueless that he missed all the signs? New Shannon started wondering what else she might be hiding. Stricklandberg, until now, he had always respected her privacy and stayed out of her personal things, but that was now off the table. New Shannon knew she kept her home desk locked, but he also knew where she kept the key. New Shannon went to their bedroom and opened a small drawer in her jewelry box. West Christina Haven enough, there was the key to her desk on a ring with a couple of other keys. New Shannon grabbed the ring and went into the bedroom they set up as her office. New Shannon opened the desk and started looking through her files. Tammyberry, he would never have done this, but he felt that she no longer deserved any consideration after her betrayal of their marriage vows. South Vanessa, he found, shocked him to the core. Foxmouth seemed that Port Victoriaberg had been lying to him throughout their entire marriage. New Shannon pulled out a folder she used for her banking records and was shocked to see how much she had socked away out of her pay. New Shannon knew how much she deposited in their joint account and was shocked to see that she had deposited much more than the agreed-upon 10 into her private account, which now had over $185,000. South Ryanton, through her purchases over the last few months, he saw that she had purchased a very expensive man's West Alexandra watch along with other gifts, no doubt for her lover, since she had never given him anything that extravagant. Lorestad had also purchased a lot of expensive clothing online, including some racy stuff from Williamstad. Port Melissa, course, he hadn't seen any of this. South Sarah, there was more, much more. New Shannon also found medical bills for a family planning clinic. Tracyport, she was able to get pregnant twice in the last 2 years and had gone in for an abortion both times. Lorestad paid cash out of her own account. New Shannon wondered if one or both of the children she aborted was really his. New Shannon also saw that she had been paying for birth control pills for at least the last 4 years on a regular basis. East Lindeberg, yet he found a receipt for Lossomouth B morning after pills. East Timothymouth, to the date on the receipt, Port Victoriaberg had purchased them earlier this week. Joshuastad, there was more. East Daniel, her receipts was a fairly recent one for a hefty down payment on a condo in a fairly wealthy part of town. Lake Tylerberg, this to be her love nest, he wondered, or was this part of her exit strategy from the marriage? Carchester were also receipts for utilities and new furniture. New Shannon looked at the key ring he found earlier and wondered if one of them was a key to her condo. New Shannon intended to find out. New Shannon turned on her computer to see what he could glean from that. New Shannon knew she always wrote her passwords down and found a piece of paper taped to the bottom of her keyboard with a list of usernames and passwords written on it. New Shannon tried the first one, and sure enough, the computer came right up. Port David, her browser, he found a link to an online email program and went in. West Christina Haven enough, the email client came right up and showed her inbox. Tracyport. She was so confident he would never snoop on her that she kept the username and password cached on the system. New Shannon began scanning her emails and was shocked at what he found. Carchester were a number of emails to and from someone named North Jasmine. Troystad, all of the emails were explicit, with Michaelberg commenting on how much he loved having sex with Port Victoriaberg. Jessica North Chase responses were pretty much the same. New Shannon noticed the emails went back almost an entire year, about the time he first noticed the changes in her. Spearschester, what he could tell. Their trysts initially took place in hotel rooms, but they later decided to meet up at homes she was selling. New Shannon spotted an email dated about 7 months ago that partially answered one of his questions. New Bob, you take care of that little problem? Michaelberg asked. Lake Michaelstad. I went down and had the abortion today. Christian Fort, bad you didn't keep it. East Monica Borough could have passed it off as Burnston. I couldn't do that. Lake Andrew, far as he knows, I can't have any children. New Shannon would know it wasn't his. Melissastad thought back 6 months and realized that was about the time he first caught her lying. North Cody lying, conniving, cheating bitch, he thought to himself. New Shannon kept scanning through their emails. Lopezmouth, one point, Michaelberg suggested they have sex in Coxbury marital bed, but she put her foot down on that. I will not do that to Melissastad, she told him in one email. Hernandezboro on, the stupid cuck has no idea what's going on. Smithville, she wrote back. Ronald View, not going to do that. South Vanessa, if you had a place of your own? East Monica Borough could pay cash on a nice condo with the commissions you make, and your husband would never know the difference. East Monica Borough may be on to something there. I do have my own account, and Melissastad never asks about it. Hoffmanstad me see what's available. West Maryborough was 2 months ago. North Cody receipt for the down payment was dated just over a month ago. I got a condo, she told him in an email. I just made the down payment, and I have new furniture coming in about a week. Melissastad doesn't know anything about it. Jacksonville. West Courtney have to christen every room in the place. Melissastad sat back, shocked at this revelation. New Shannon continued looking through the emails. Nancy Town, why do you stay with your husband? Jonathan Port, not just leave him and move into the condo? New Brent, DVM it or not, I still have feelings for him. New Shannon may be a stodgy accountant for a chain of tire stores, but I like him and he's good to me. I only got the condo so we'd have a place to hook up without having to risk being seen at a hotel. Vargas Chester, you're still married. New Felicia, babe, say the word, and new Mark dump Jessica Town in a heartbeat. Snydershire, a royal pain in the ass anyway. West Courtney, see what happens after the conference, she wrote back. Lake Karina, the conference? Steventown happening after the conference? He asked himself. Melissastad began printing her emails and copying the receipts he found when the phone rang. Coxbury number came up on the display. South Jennifer Mouth, he said, answering the call. Port Ashleyville, me, babe. Jacksonfort. Jeremy Mouth, you all right? East Monica Borough, sound out of sorts. Jennifer Chester got a splitting headache, he said, not wanting to let her know he was on to her. West Courtney, I just wanted to let you know Ronald View settling down for the night. East Monica Borough, take something for that headache and get some rest. I love you, and I miss you, she said. South Emma Chester, me too. New Shannon ended the call, wondering if she noticed that he didn't specifically say he loved her or missed her. Lake Danielberry he was close to punching a hole in the wall. New Shannon decided to find out who this Michaelberg character was, so he began looking on the website for the company Port Victoria Berg worked for. West Christina Haven, enough, he found him. North Jasmine, the site said, is the regional manager for the real estate company Port Victoria Berg works for. Mendistown, other words, she was screwing her boss. New Shannon printed the page out and put it with his stack of stuff. Gibsonton to rest, he decided to see if he could get into her condo. New Shannon verified the address but wondered if she had a security system set up. New Shannon looked through her paperwork and found a series of numbers on the paperwork next to the word alarm. Port Melissa course, she would write it down, he thought to himself. Laurastad writes everything down. New Shannon closed down her computer and headed out, stopping in the garage to grab a pair of latex gloves. New Shannon didn't want to leave any evidence that he had been there. New Shannon found the complex easily and parked in her allotted spot. Whiteborough to the door, he put the gloves on and tried one of the keys on the ring he found in her jewelry box. West Christina Haven, enough, the door opened, and he walked in. New Shannon saw the alarm system console on the wall next to the door and entered the code he found in her paperwork, then verified the alarm was off. Lake Karina turning on some lights, he looked around the condo and was impressed with Coxbury choice of furnishings. Laurastad always had good taste, he thought. Christian Fort bad, she wasn't as loyal as she was color-coordinated. Port Melissa course, there were no pictures that included him. New Shannon hadn't really expected any anyway. Michaelberg was, after all, her love nest, her escape from their marriage. Whiteborough into the kitchen. He noticed she even had a few dishes and some silverware. Carchester wasn't much in the refrigerator, and the pantry seemed just as deserted. New Shannon was somewhat surprised to see the place was fully furnished, complete with tasteful portraits of flowers. Carchester was even a large flat-screen television mounted to the wall. New Shannon walked into the master bedroom and noted that it, too, was fully furnished, complete with long lacy curtains over the windows that fell to the floor. Laurastad loved lacy curtains and had put them all over their house. South Ryanton down, he couldn't help but notice they hung directly over an electric baseboard heater. New Shannon shook his head, wondering if Port Victoria Berg even considered the potential fire hazard. Port David the dresser drawers, he found some lingerie that he had never seen before, along with men's underwear he suspected belonged to Michaelberg. New Shannon also found an assortment of sex toys. New Shannon pulled out his phone and took pictures. New Shannon also found a card addressed to Port Victoria Berg in her nightstand drawer. New Shannon opened it and saw it was from Michaelberg. Lake Ryanshire wanted to say thanks for the watch. South Joseph, wait for your housewarming. Foxmouth was signed, West Terrace, Michaelberg. New Shannon felt like ripping South Johnshire arm off at the socket and beating his cheating wife with it. New Shannon found even more clothes, both men's and women's, on hangers inside the walk-in closet. Gibsonburg, the master bathroom. He couldn't help but spot the 2 toothbrushes hanging over the sink and the Hisender's towels on the rack next to the shower. New Shannon pulled out his phone and took more pictures. North Cody's second bedroom only contained a small desk and a chair. A network cable lay on the desk, suggesting she used that for her laptop. A few pieces of mail addressed to her lay on the table, all of them from utility companies. New Shannon took a picture of those, making sure her name and address could be clearly read in the photos. North Cody windows here were also covered with long lacy curtains that fell to the floor. Lake Andrew in the master bedroom, they, too, fell right in front of an electric baseboard heater. South Ryanton around, he noticed a few other things that could be considered fire or safety hazards. New Dylenburg example, there were no smoke detectors in the bedrooms, and the one mounted in the kitchen ceiling looked very old. New Shannon wondered if it even had a battery in it. Elizabethtown sure everything was just as it was when he entered. He turned off all the lights, reactivated the security system, and left, making sure the door was locked. New Shannon went back to his car and headed home, considering his options. Lopeshire was a no-brainer in his mind. Ryanville, if she got rid of the condo and called it quits with her lover, he could never trust her again. New Shannon also knew that men often got the short end of the stick financially speaking. New Shannon knew from her financial records that she made considerably more than he did, so he hoped that would be enough to avoid alimony. New Shannon decided to wait until he spoke with an attorney before taking any action. New Shannon also hoped the fact that she already purchased a condo in her name only would mean he wouldn't have to give her the house or sell it and give her half the proceeds. Mendestown his mind. She abandoned him when she bought the condo without telling him. Michelestad didn't have any children, so child support and custody weren't an issue, but he wanted the 2 cheaters to pay for what they had done. South Jamieburg was out of the question, as he had no desire to go to jail. Lake Karina, he got home. He looked in the phone book and found a listing for North Cathyfort. New Shannon hoped it was the right North Jasmine and dialed the number. South Sherry residence, said a female voice. Ehrenberg Pratt, this Donnemouth. South Sherry? He asked. Lake Michaelstad, it is. Lake Debbie, whom am I speaking? Kevinburg, name is Woodardmouth DDS. Ehrenberg Pratt, your husband, the regional manager for Lake Lukemouth Real Estate? Melissastad asked. Lake Michaelstad, he is, but he's gone to a conference this weekend, and he'll be out next week visiting other offices. Leifert have to call the regional office and leave a message for him there. Aguilarfort, Donnemouth. South Sherry, you're the one Susan Berry liked to speak with, Melissastad said. North Brianna Berry? She asked. Lake Michaelstad, ma'am. I hate to tell you this, but my wife is having an affair with your husband, Jacksonfort. Jeremy Mouth, you sure about this? She asked. Lake Michaelstad, I am, and I can prove it. East Monica Borough have ironclad proof of this? She asked. I can even show you where they get together if you want. New Shannon could hear her sigh over the phone. Ehrenberg Pratt tomorrow, okay? She asked. West Christina Haven. South Vanessa time works best for you? Port Mary at about 1 in the afternoon, she said. New Shannon gave her the address and directions to Coxbury condo. New Mark, see you there. Then, Melissastad told her, ending the call. Lake Sharon. He went to his desk and began making a list of things to do. North Cody, first thing he decided would be to change the locks on the doors. New Shannon could wrap that up in plenty of time to meet South Johnshire wife at Coxbury condo. New Shannon considered getting drunk that night but put the idea out of his head. Alvarezboro, he grabbed a piece of cold pizza and munched on that as he considered all of his options. New Alexanderboro, the pizza, he trudged up the stairs to bed. New Shannon got up early the next day and headed to a local hardware store, where he bought everything he needed to change the door locks. New Shannon also made another key to the condo. New Joshua noon, he had all of them changed. New Shannon showered and, grabbing the audio recorder and all of the emails he printed from Coxbury account, headed over to her condo to meet South Johnshire wife. New Shannon pulled into Coxbury slot and spotted an attractive dark-haired woman in a Brownville not far away. New Shannon walked to the car and knocked on the window. Lorestad rolled the window down and looked at him. Jacksonfort. Jeremy Mouth, you Jessica Town, South Sherry? He asked. Lorestad nodded her head. I am. East Monica Borough must be Woodardmouth DDS. West Terra and the same, he said, opening her door. Hernandez Borough with me. New Mark show you their love nest. East Monica Borough may want to put these on first, though, he added, handing her a pair of latex gloves. I don't want to leave any fingerprints. Ehrenberg Rubio idea, she said. Michelestad went to her door, and Melissastad used the key he had made to open it. New Shannon was glad to see it worked. Lake Karina turning off the security alarm. They stepped inside. Melissastad showed her the bedroom, opening the drawers and the closet so she could see South Johnshire clothing. North Briannaberry, my God. Jennifer Chester been looking for some of this stuff the past couple of weeks. I was wondering where his clothes were disappearing to. West Andrews hire your husband been wearing a West Alexandra watch lately? Melissastad asked. Laurastad nodded her head. Lake Michaelstad, he told me it was a gift from management. Melissastad shook his head and pulled the card out of Coxbury nightstand. New Shannon opened it up and showed it to her. Laurastad read the note and began crying. Ehrenberg Pratt, that his handwriting? Melissastad asked. Lake Michaelstad, she said, sobbing. East Stephen Moore, he said, pulling out the emails and the audio recorder. Laurastad read through the emails, tears flowing down her cheeks. Cooperfort, he played the audio from Cottyburg. Ronald View, sorry about all this, he said, wrapping his arms around her. New Shannon felt like crying as well but held it in. Port Ashleyville, not your fault. Jennifer Chester suspected something like this for a while, but I never had any proof. Lake Karina, a while. She collected herself and looked at him. Nancy Town, what are you going to do? She asked. Ronald View going to divorce her. South Vanessa, about you? Ronald View kicking that lame dog out of the house as soon as I see him, she said. Port Loraberry. She stopped crying and looked at him. Jennifer Chester got an idea, she said. Stephen Town, that? He asked. Michelestad want to live here together. Jonathan Port, don't we help them? South Vanessa, do you mean? I mean, why don't we pack their crap up and drop it off over here? She responded. Melissastad thought for a bit and smiled at her. I kind of like that idea, but we better get moving. South Mary be back in a day or two. Laurastad shook her head. Michael Berg said he would be gone for a week after the convention. Susan Berry bet anything shall find an excuse to be gone as well. Melissastad suddenly remembered the recorded conversation. Port Victoria Berg specifically asked him if he had everything set for the next week but didn't indicate what it was they had planned. Port Allisonton, I think you're right. McDonald Town, I want to get her crap out of my house as soon as possible. I agree. West Timothy, you back here in, say, 2.5 hours? Michaelfort, for me. Ronald View just gonna toss her crap in trash bags. So I think I can do that and be back here in 2.5 hours. New Mark, see you then, she said. Standing up, Melissastad took a hard look at her. Laurastad was shorter than Port Victoria Berg, with a girl-next-door cuteness that added to her shapely figure. New Shannon thought Michael Berg was a fool to cheat on this woman. Michelestad left the condo and arrived about 2.5 hours later, their cars crammed with bags full of their respective spouses' belongings. Michelestad carried the bags into the condo and tossed them into the nearly empty second bedroom, not caring if anything broke. Michelestad knew the two cheaters would have to spend hours sorting through everything. I don't know about you, but I wasn't exactly very careful with his things, she said. New Shannon laughed. Richard's Chester was I, Melissastad said. Michelestad laughed and did a high five. New Shannon looked at her. I don't know about you, but Ronald View hungry, he said. North Jonathan too. I could really go for a nice juicy hamburger. A big, thick cheeseburger sounds really good to me as well. I know just the place. Jeremy Burrow to join me? Kevin Berg treat. South Arthurport on, she said. New Shannon drove to the bar he and Ehrenberg liked to visit, and she followed. Lake Karina they parked. Jessica Town looked at the front of the building. A bar? She asked. Smithtown me, they make the best burgers here. Leifert love it. Port Rodney, I just hope you're not going to ply me with alcohol and take advantage of me. New Shannon laughed. Lake Andrew, inviting as that sounds, I wouldn't do that to you, he said. West Allen, she said, laughing. Michelestad went inside and ordered a beer and a burger with fries. Lake Andrew they ate. They swapped stories of their failing marriages. Jessica North Chase story was somewhat similar to his. Laurastad met him in college, and they married shortly thereafter, except she wanted children and he didn't. New Shannon started working for Lake Lukemouth Real Estate, and she got a job doing accounts receivable for a home improvement company. Jacksonfort. Jeremy Mouth you a CPA? He asked. Laurastad shook her head. Smithville, I never went quite that far, but I was hoping to do so someday, she said. New Shannon told her about his background and job. Thomasburg always on the lookout for a good person. Brandymouth, if you can get me a resume, we can help each other out. I just may do that, Rivas sighed. North Chase, she said, taking a bite of her burger. Lake Ryanshire then, his phone buzzed. New Shannon saw the number was Coxbury phone, so he answered. South Jennifer Mouth, he said in a neutral tone of voice. South Kimberley Fort, baby, Port Victoria Berg said. New Shannon could tell she had been drinking. South Vanessa, you up to? North Briannaberry, just down at the bar getting a burger. Steventown up with you? Spencertown what? I got the top seller award, she said, not waiting for his response. Ronald View happy for you, he said. South Emmachester, and they want me to stay here in East Carloside next week to work with their agents, she said. Port Melissa course, he already knew that was a lie. Port Natalie, that terrific? East Stephen talk that I might get moved into management soon. Smithville doubt on her back, he thought to himself. Cruiseview wonderful. South Vanessa about our anniversary? Cruiseview coming up this new Dawnview. I know, and Ronald View sorry about that. Brandymouth, we can celebrate it next weekend. Jessie Berry bother. I know your work is important to you, and I sure wouldn't want you missing a big sale. Steventown, that's supposed to mean? She asked. Lake Vicky. Port Ashleyville, just that you only get to celebrate 10 years of marriage once. But I understand how much your job means to you. Jessie Berry worry about it. West Courtney, yes, my job is important to me, but I thought you might be happy for me, she said. Ronald View very happy. South Jennifershire work with your agents. Jessie Berry worry about me. I love you, she said. Port Rodney. North Jonathan too. New Rachelford. Port Rachel that, he ended the call and looked at Jessicatown. West Courtney, there it is, he told her. Loristad shook her head. Snydershire actually choosing Michaelberg over your anniversary, Jessicatown said, placing her hand on his. New Shannon almost broke down crying. Adamsborough was someone he barely met, more concerned about him than his own wife. South Vanessa a bitch. Ronald View sorry. Jessie Berry B. I would have called her worse. Michelistad turned back to the video. Nancy Town, what about your anniversary? Jacksonfort. Jeremy Mouth, you just gonna blow it off? Thomasborough sounds much more fun to me than a night at a steakhouse. New Mark promised to make it up to him. Brandymouth, I will, maybe I want. Michaelberg looked at her. East Monica Borough cold bitch, you know that? He asked. Loristad shrugged her shoulders. Port Ashleyville only our 10th anniversary. West Meganport be more. Seanfort cares about that? I need you and me right now. Port Rachel that, they started screwing again, prompting Melissastad to stop the video. Jennifer Chester seen enough. Lunaberg about you? Jessicatown nodded her head, tears running down her cheeks. Erictown then enough, she said. New Mark be making an appointment Port Ronnichester to see an attorney about a divorce. East Monica Borough wanna join me? New Peggy you mind? She asked quietly. Lake Kathy McCoy et al, he told her. Jessicatown broke down, sobbing. Melissastad held her in his arms and let her cry on his shoulder. New Shannon felt like crying as well but decided to hold it in. New Shannon comforted her as much as he could while battling his own emotions. New Peggy, you mind if I stayed here with you tonight? Smithville sex, I just want to be held. Port Melissa course you can stay. South Eric. Why side the week if you want? East Guyton. I can't believe I gave that jerk all those years, all that time. I fell for his bullshit. I know exactly what you mean. New Shannon led her upstairs to the master bedroom and found an old t-shirt that looked long enough for her to wear to bed. Loristad took it and went into the bathroom to change. New Shannon changed into a pair of pajamas as he waited for her to return and climbed into bed. Loristad came out of the bathroom in the long t-shirt, and he almost gasped when he saw her. New Shannon always thought Coxbury legs looked good, but Dianchester were the shapeliest he had ever seen. Loristad smiled as she climbed under the covers. Steventown, the matter? Kleinborough, you ever seen a woman's legs before? North Jeremy, that look as good as yours, Melissastad said. New Tylertown will get you everywhere, sir, she teased. New Shannon wrapped an arm around her and held her close, taking in her scent. Loristad put an arm over his chest and snuggled close to him. East Monica Borough, no. You're the only woman besides my wife Jennifer Chester ever been in bed with in over 10 years, he asked. Joshua Stad, you're the only man Jennifer Chester been with besides my husband, she said. Michelistad looked into each other's faces for what seemed like an eternity. Cooperfort Jessicatown leaned over and gave Melisastad a soft, sensual kiss on the lips. New Shannon responded, kissing her back with more passion than he knew was possible. New Shannon realized what could happen and backed off. New Shannon didn't want to do to Port Victoriaburg what she was doing to him. Tracyport, Jessicatown felt the same way and put her head on his shoulder, not saying a word. Michelistad fell asleep that way and woke up the next morning spooning each other. Ehrenberg Rubio morning. Sleepyhead. East Monicaborough don't need to move on my account, she added as he got up to use the bathroom. Ehrenberg Rubio morning beautiful. New Mark be right back. New Shannon went into the bathroom. Knew Joshua the time he came out. Jessicatown had helped herself to the kitchen and was making them each a helping of bacon and eggs. South Ryantown at the clock on the wall. He saw it was 8:30 a.m. North Ryantown turned back to Jessicatown. New Shannon loved watching her cook wearing his old t-shirt and was reminded for a moment of happier times when Port Victoriaburg made breakfast for them every morning. Port Allisonton, that smells good, he said. I hope you don't mind me helping myself to your kitchen, she said. Lake Cathy McCoy et al. I can't remember the last time someone made me breakfast. Port Victoriaburg never cooked for you? She asked. Lopezmouth first, she did, but she quit making breakfast a long time ago. Port Johnnet took up too much time, and she had to make herself presentable for her clients. South Vanessa a bitch, Jessicatown muttered. I agree, he said. New Shannon took in the smell of the bacon as she placed a large plate in front of him. New Shannon devoured his food like a man who hadn't eaten in a month. Port Allisonton, that was good. East Monicaborough cook like this every morning? East Jamie I can, she said. Burnston phone buzzed. South Ryanton at the screen, he saw East Alexis name and number, so he answered. Ehrenberg Rubio morning, Lake Cathy. Gonzales Haven on Kimberley side? Lake Cathy laughed. Erictown often than I care to. I just wanted to let you know that your wife and her lover boarded their flight in East Carloside just before 6 this morning. Michelistad had a 40-minute layover at East Michaelview, and the plane took off from there about an hour ago. South Mary be landing in Port Tamar Haven in about 5 hours or so. I have the flight information if you want it. I do, Melisastad said. West Patrickton on Kimberleyfurt Flight 31. I have someone in Port Tamar Haven ready to pick up their trail when they get there. East Guyton, Lake Cathy, Melisastad said, writing down the information. New Shannon ended the call and looked back at Jessicatown. West Courtney, he said, it's on. West Patrickton on their way to Thomasboro. Port Victoriaburg sat back in her seat after the plane took off. Port Robert out the window. She watched as the plane headed out over the Fraserberry. Michaelburg is it, she thought to herself. South Ryanton to her left. She saw Michaelburg was already sound asleep in the seat next to hers. Loristad closed her eyes for a moment and thought about the last 10 years. New Dylenburg a moment. She felt a pang of guilt at what she was doing to her husband, who foolishly trusted her. Port Mariestad down. She knew that this was just the latest in a series of bad decisions on her part, but she rationalized that she owed this to herself. Port Elizabeth, she thought, this will end with Melisastad none the wiser. Jessica Northchase marriage would go on, and they would ultimately retire and grow old together. Jessica Northchase first bad decision was telling Melisastad she couldn't get pregnant. North Cody truth was she could, but she just didn't want to get tied down with babies. North Cody idea of motherhood might appeal to some, but not to her. Nancy Town she told Melisastad that a medical complication forced her to have her tubes tied. New Shannon bought her explanation and eventually accepted it. South Sarah she had problems with the IUD and was forced to quit using it. North Cody pelvic pain and the headaches finally became too much for her to endure, so she decided to use standard birth control pills instead. Loristad also started using the calendar rhythm method and avoided having sex during her more fertile days. Foxmouth worked most of the time, but she did end up pregnant twice. North Cody first time was with her husband. Michaelville of what his reaction would be to her pregnancy, which would unmask her first lie and her own desire to remain childless. She discreetly sought an abortion, paying for it with her own money. Larson-Chester, they had agreed early on to have personal accounts along with a joint account. Michelistad had initially agreed to deposit 10 of their net pay, but she fudged a lot. Loristad could pay for the abortion out of her own money, and Melisastad would remain in the dark. North Cody's second pregnancy was with Michaelburg about 7 months ago. Loristad told her lover about it and made the decision to get another abortion, again paying for it out of her own account. East Julieland, she thought Melissastad would never find out about it. Joshuastad, then there were her affairs. Laurastad remained faithful to her husband for the first 6 years of their marriage. But that changed one day while she was out with a client who just happened to be very good-looking and also very rich. Foxmouth was a spurofement decision, but one she never really regretted. Michelastad made mad, passionate love in the master bedroom of the large house she was showing, and he showed his appreciation by buying the house on the spot. Laurastad didn't do that very often, maybe about 10 times over the course of the next year and a half, but she learned later that others had done the same thing. West Christina Haven. She felt a bit guilty, but she decided, South Vanessa the hell. Travisport, the other girls can do it and get away with it, so could she. Mendistown, her mind, it didn't affect Melissastad any. Laurastad never stopped loving him, and what he didn't know wouldn't hurt him. Cooperfort, she met Michaelberg, and things changed. New Shannon was everything her husband wasn't. Melissastad liked to analyze everything before making a decision, whereas Michaelberg was spontaneous and made spurofement decisions. Bernstown life and career had been decided long ago. New Shannon had worked for his uncle all his life and still did. Like Kathy Vincent, he would become the CFO of his uncle's tire company, and one day he would take over as president and CEO. Michaelberg, on the other hand, didn't know where he would be in 5 years and took things one day at a time. While Melissastad thought about the future, Michaelberg lived for the moment. Michelastad were also quite different in bed. While Melissastad made love to her and focused on her pleasure, Michaelberg simply took her and drilled her. Lopezmouth first, they met at motels and hotels around town or at houses she had listed for sale, but she became concerned that someone might spot them and alert either Melissastad or South Johnshire wife, Jessica Town. Cooperfort, there was the night that Melissastad expressed concern that they were drifting apart. Laurastad got scared and cooled it with Michaelberg for a while. Laurastad focused all her love on her husband, but that didn't last too long. Michaelberg wanted to start back up, but she was afraid that Melissastad might learn about them. Laurastad had to come up with an answer, so she decided to buy her own condo. West Maryborough Way. She would have a special place for her and Michaelberg. New Shannon wanted to screw her in the bed she shared with her husband, but she shot that down. Ryanville, though she considered Melissastad to be something of a stick in the mud, she still had some feelings for him. Foxmouth also helped that she and Melissastad decided long ago to file separate tax returns. Laurastad could easily keep the condo from him while getting the tax benefits. Foxmouth was a win-win all around, or at least that's what she told herself. Then a side of that led to this, her latest decision to spend a week in Thomasboro with Michaelberg. Laurastad took a week vacation from her office, telling them she was going to Thomasboro with her husband after the annual corporate gathering. Michaelberg, meanwhile, told his wife he would be on the road for the next week, which wasn't uncommon for him. Laurastad lied to Melissastad, telling him she would be in East Carlowside for the week. Port Melissa course, all it would take is a phone call or two, and he would know better. Brown Haven for her, she thought. Melissastad believed whatever she told him. North Cody, only downside was that she would miss spending her 10th anniversary with Melissastad. Laurastad would make it up to him, though, once she got back, and all this would remain her secret. Laurastad smiled as she looked down at the blue water below them, thinking about Thomasboro. Laurastad pulled out her phone and checked for messages or calls. Michaelberg is where her world collapsed. Laurastad saw a message: Spencer Chester belongings have been moved to your love nest. Jesse Berry come home. Spencer Chester soon tobe ex-husband. Melissastad. Schmidtberry, she saw an email. Foxmouth had an attachment. Laurastad opened the attachment and saw the video of her and Michaelberg screwing. Carchester was a message in the email: Travisport, you fight the divorce. I will send this video to everyone who knows you. I will ensure that every workplace you visit, this video will be ahead of you. Lake Andrew for the lover boy. Once he is back, he is looking at a divorce and life on the street. I will ensure that your lover boy is turned into an example of why you do not screw another man's wife. New Joshua now. Blood had drained from Coxbury body. Port Rebecca shit. I am done. South Vanessa, will I do now? Travisport, he is that pissed off, he will do what he says. Port Loraberry. She felt the plane shudder and thought that maybe they had hit turbulence. Laurastad felt the plane nose down, and the engine sounded different. Laurastad realized something was dreadfully wrong when she looked out the window. Port Loraberry. There was a flurry of activity in the cabin, and she could feel the forces start to push her into her seat. South Ryanton outside. She could tell they were going down fast. North Briannaberry my Ericport, she thought to herself. Michaelberg is it. Thomasburg going to crash. Ronald View going to die. South Spencer masks suddenly fell down, and she could hear other passengers, including Michaelberg, screaming as the flight attendants tried to prepare them for the inevitable. Lorestad looked at her phone and, with tears smearing her face, made one last decision. Melissastad and Jessicatown had finished breakfast and put the last of the dishes away. Michelistad sat back down at the table and discussed plans for dealing with their wayward spouses. Melissastad was impressed with Dianchester's ability to analyze a problem. South Hollychester now, he felt closer to her than he had to Port Victoriaburg for months. New Shannon had just returned to the table with a second cup of coffee for them when his phone buzzed. New Shannon saw Coxbury name and number show, so he put it on speaker. South Jennifermouth, he asked. Melissastad, he heard Port Victoriaburg cry out. Foxmouth was hard to hear as there was a lot of background noise, and they heard other people screaming. Lake Michaelstad, Port Victoriaburg, what's going on? He asked. Smithville time. Brownborough going down. Nancy Town sorry. Jacksonfort. West Kenneth M.D. me, they heard before the call suddenly ended. Melissastad and Jessicatown looked at each other, shocked. New Shannon tried calling Port Victoriaburg back, but it went straight to voicemail. New Shannon looked at Jessicatown. Port Michelle calling Michaelberg, he told her. Lorestad ran into the front room and grabbed her phone from her purse. Lake Andrew he watched. She tried calling but shook her head. Foxmouth went straight to voicemail, she said. New Shannon went into his home office and fired up his computer. Lake Karina it came up. He did a search and found a contact number for the airline. New Shannon called and got the runaround but was finally able to talk to someone who confirmed they were investigating reports the plane had gone down. New Shannon left his name and number, along with Coxbury and South Johnshire information, and was told someone would contact him. New Shannon also left Dianchester information so they could contact her. New Shannon did a quick Tiffany-side search, but nothing showed up. New Shannon figured it would take at least an hour before any news showed up. Michelistad went into the front room and turned on the television, wondering if anything had been reported. Melissastad went from channel to channel, but nothing was being reported. New Shannon looked at his phone and thought about the events leading up to this moment. Jacob Mouth, one of the news networks, reported that an Kimberley-Furt flight to Port Tamar Haven had crashed in the New Kevin, but there were no details. Brian Port, Jessicatown said, her hand over her mouth. Melissastad held her and silently prayed that Port Victoriaburg was still alive. New Shannon hated what she did to their marriage, but he didn't want her dead. Port Sydneyfurt hour later, his phone rang. New Shannon turned down the television and answered. Rivas side. North Chase? A woman asked. Michaelberg is he said. I just wanted to reach out and confirm that your wife's flight has crashed. She said. I don't have any more information for you at this time, but we'll contact you just as soon as we have more information. New Christopher MDU, Melissastad said, ending the call. New Shannon and Jessicatown shared a hug and shed a few tears. A few minutes later, Dianchester's phone rang, and she was given the same information. East Rebecca Borough later, his uncle called. Michaelberg was not unusual, as his parents often reached out to him whenever they heard something like this on the news. South Kimberley Fort, Melissastad, his uncle said. South Kimberley Fort, Billy Haven. Juliashire things going? He asked. Lake Ryanshire got back from church. New Bob you see the news about that crash? His uncle asked. South Emachester I did, Melissastad said. Cruiseview terrible, his uncle said. New Joshua the way, house Port Victoriaburg? Port Natalie she on her way back from East Carlow side? Snydershire not doing too well right now, Billy Haven. Lorestad was on that airplane that crashed. South Vanessa? His uncle asked, shocked. South Vanessa was she doing going to Thomasborough without you? Lorestad was with her boyfriend, Melissastad said. North Briannaberry my Ericport, the elder man said. Ronald View so sorry to hear that, son. New Felicia you take the week off and take care of things. New Mark let Lake Cathy know. Travisport there's anything we can do just call. Okay? East Guyton, Billy Haven, Melissastad said. New Shannon ended the call. His mind flooded with conflicting emotions. Denishire one hand, he was sad that Port Victoriaburg was in all likelihood dead. Denishire the other, he was angry with her for cheating. New Shannon was also angry at himself for not confronting her. Port Michaelberg enough, he wasn't upset about the fact that her death would mean no divorce. Cooperfort, he had another thought. New Shannon would have to deal with all her final expenses, including the condo. Robertfort, he thought to himself. New Shannon looked at Jessicatown and wondered how she would manage all this. South Vanessa, would she do? New Shannon had a thought and approached her. Jessicatown, why don't you sell your place and move in here with me? Lorestad looked up at him, tears filling her eyes. North Codystad, you mean that? She asked. Lake Michaelstad, I do. I have another bedroom upstairs, and you're going to have a lot to deal with over the next few months. Brandymouth, we could help each other get through this. Lorestad thought for a minute before answering. Jonathan Port, not. South Sarah, only on one condition. Steventown, that. East Monica Borough, let me sleep with you, she said. South Bethshire? Melissastad asked. Michaelburg was moving much faster than he thought it would, and he wondered if it was wise. New Shannon set that thought aside and decided to throw caution to the wind. Lake Michaelstad. I haven't really had the comfort of a husband for a long time. Hamiltonside night, I felt content for the first time in ages. Ehrenberg Pratt, that okay with you? Port Ashleyville, more than okay, he said. Ehrenberg Rubio. Cooperfort, Newmark, run back to the house to get my things. And Newmark be back over tonight. Melissastad nodded his head. Newmark be here, he said. Lake Karina, she left, he called East Melissa, the woman who ran the office Port Victoriaburg normally worked out of. South Jennifer Mouth, she said when she answered. South Jennifer Mouth, East Melissa. Michaelburg is Woodard Mouth DDS, he said. North Briannaberry. Hi. Melissastad. Port Kevin? I don't know. I hear it's nice this time of year. Jonathan Port? West Courtney, Port Victoriaburg said the two of you were going there after the company meeting. I assumed you were on your way. Smithville, she was on her way to Thomasboro, but not with me. Lorestad left with Michaelburg. South Vanessa? East Melissa asked, shocked. Cruiseview right, but she didn't make it. Richards Chester, did he? North Cody Plain, they were on, crashed into the Fraserberry earlier today. Brandymouth, you saw it on the news. North Briannaberry, no. North Codystad, you know if she made it? Port Rodney. I don't think either of them survived the crash, he said. Ronald View, so sorry. Meltonshire, accept my condolences, and thanks for letting me know. Ronald View, not sure if you're aware of it, but the company has life insurance for all their employees. Newmark, get the paperwork started first thing in the morning, but I will need something from the airline. Port Eric Borough, you get that to me? South Emmachester, Newmark, get what I can. I do have a question for you, though. Steventown, that? East Melissa asked. Thomasburg, you aware that Port Victoriaburg was having an affair with Michaelburg? He asked. I suspected there was something going on. Carchester were rumors but nothing more. Catherine Chester usually don't gossip about things like that in the office. I see. West Courtney, that's all I have. Newmark, be in touch. East Guyton, and again, please accept my condolences. I appreciate that, Melissastad said, ending the call. West Maryborough night. As he and Jessicatown watched television, a report came on about the crash. East Timothymouth, to the report, the plane's final moments were captured by a crewman aboard a freight liner that was just a couple of miles from the crash site. North Cody Network aired the amateur video, which clearly showed the airplane rapidly falling nose first. Foxmouth looked like the craft literally pancaked as it hit the water. North Cody report said the freighter changed course to see if they could recover any survivors. Michelistad pulled a number of bodies out of the water, but there were no survivors. Michelistad also recovered a lot of luggage, including Port Victoriaburg and South Johnshire. Richards Chester, Coxbury, nor South Johnshire bodies were found. North Cody next few months were hectic for both Melissastad and Jessicatown. Lorestad moved in with Melissastad and sold her house. Melissastad had plenty to deal with, including Coxbury condo. Carchester was nothing in it he wanted, so he gave everything away to Gutierrezville, which was more than happy to take it. New Shannon finally sold the condo, getting back what Port Victoriaburg had originally paid for it. West Alexisfort, he and Jessicatown received an insurance check for $220,000 from Lake Lukemouth Realty for the deaths of their respective spouses. Jessicatown moved in with Melissastad, and they immediately began exorcising all traces of Port Victoriaburg. East Jennifer Haven came down, knickknacks were pulled, and furniture, especially the bed, was replaced. Melissastad let family members take what they wanted. North Cody Rest, including the 2 cars, was either sold, burned, given to Gutierrezville, or tossed in the dump. Melissa Stad also had to jump through hoops to resolve Coxbury bank accounts. Lake Karina a couple of months and a mountain of paperwork, he walked away with a check for around $185,000. Port Tristan pounced on both Melissa Stad and Jessica Town, looking to capitalize on the crash. Michaelberg Fisher investigation revealed that the crew misunderstood warnings from the onboard computer and took the wrong actions. North Cody craft fell at an estimated 12,000 feet per minute and hit the water at somewhere around 135 miles per hour, meaning that it took just over 3 minutes for the plane to smash into the ocean. Coxbury last 3 minutes, some of which were on the phone to him, must have been hell, he thought. Jessica Northchase last act had been one of contrition, no doubt brought on by the realization that she was plummeting to her death and there was nothing anyone could do about it. Gregory Port, he thought it was too little and far too late. Brownhaven. The airline settled with all the affected families, paying a little over $185,000 for each passenger. Between Melissa Stad and Jessica Town, they grossed a bit more than $1.15 million after everything had been accounted for. Port Melissa course, the taxman got his share, but they still ended up with a very tidy nest egg. North Michaelchester, neither Coxbury nor South Johnshire remains were found. There was no need for a funeral, but Melissa Stad and Jessica Town held memorial services, mostly for the benefit of their respective families. Richardschester one shed a tear for their deceased spouses. Michelestad did discuss that Melissa Stad would not piss on their symbolic graves. But a past month later, Melissa Stad visited their graves. I just came to tell you that I am very happy that you are dead. North Cody divorce would have cost me money, but since your death, I am getting money. East Guyton for dying. Melissa Stad began walking away but then turned back and pissed on their graves. I will regret not confronting you and watching your face turn white, but pissing on your grave is a much better feeling. Port Rachel that Melissa Stad emptied his bladder. Teresa Berry that feels better. Port Jordan months after the services, Jessica Town left her job and went to work for Melissa Stad. Knew Joshua now, they were madly in love with each other. West Terra night, as they ate dinner at the local Lake Eddy, Melissa Stad got on one knee and proposed. Jessica Town squealed with delight as people around them applauded. Port Ashleyville, about time you decided to make an honest woman out of me, she whispered in his ear. Jonathan Port, is that? He asked. East Christchester, you're going to be a daddy, she said. New Shannon covered her face with kisses. I love you so much, he told her. I love you more. Lake Ryanshire, one favor, though. Stephen Town that? He asked. Meltonshire, don't ask me to fly anywhere, she said. New Shannon laughed as he hugged her close. Smithville worries, my dear. Travisport, you ever fly? New Mark be your wings. Thanks for watching. What would you do in a situation like this? Let us know in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.